keeping for this evening. Please can I remind all attendees of the following. Please can you put your mobile phones on silent or turn them off, like so. There are no fire alarms planned, so in the event of a fire, please make your way out of the room and follow a member of the staff to the evacuation point on Southern Green at the Blitz Tree. After officers introduce the report, I will invite questions and comments from executive members, and then I will invite opposition members to make any comments that they would like the executive to consider in our decision making. Where there are questions, I will ask the portfolio holder to respond either to an officer or we will respond later. As usual, if answers can't be provided at the meeting, we will circulate them after the meeting. We will then confirm the recommendations from the report and move to the vote. Please note, for any items which have already been considered and debated by other committees, I ask that members not repeat the same questions which have already been answered at those committees, or if they are waiting for an answer outside of that committee. Thank you. So have we got any apologies? I don't think we have this evening.
No apologies, Chair.
Okay. Declarations of interest.
So signing of the minutes.
Signing of the minutes. So you agreed I'll sign the minutes as a true copy? Okay, that's agreed. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Please, you know what is required of you there, everyone. Local government. Access to information. Number 4, part 2. There are no part 2 items. There are no public questions. No public question received. Before we go on to the next item, I'm just going to mention something. We've got a bit of time. I want to give a bit of public thanks to the NHS. And Thursday evening, many of you would have saw me in this room at 6 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock, I had blue lights and an ambulance outside my house taking me up to the acute medical unit. And it's all over a blood test that I had in the morning, which thankfully was all wrong, because the potassium, apparently the red blood cells can get damaged in any test. I had an ECG, and this is going to be a shock to many of you. I have a heart, and it was functioning quite well. So with all of the issues that come up, I have. And they have this care at home service, or hospital at home. And what a fantastic service. I was in and out inside of 50 minutes. And I thought, what a fantastic service. And I'm not sure everybody understands or hears about the good work. We will always hear the bad work that goes on. But so I was all tested up within an hour. And I'm just going to say, I think it's a marvellous thing that we've got there at no cost to anybody as well, apart from our normal taxation, which is quite right. So I just thought I'd share that to you. No by-elections required, no anything else like that required at the moment. So we'll move on. I just thought I'd say that because we've got a bit of time tonight. I'd like us now to move on to the review of the corporate risk register, which is item 6, and we've got a recommendation here, and this will be a resolved matter. So I'm going to ask Dave to talk about it, and then we'll go through the normal procedure. Dave.
Thank you, Chair. This is the quarterly update of the corporate risk register, which has already been reviewed by Audit and Governance a couple of weeks ago in March. There's no significant updates at this quarter to report to members, and there was just one suggestion at the Audit and Governance, which was, could we show a direction of travel in terms of the risk score, so where this score has gone up or down in the quarter, just show by a simple arrow, which officers will incorporate into the next quarterly update. As there's nothing significant changed, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, thank you, Dave. Just on that point, sounds a good idea to me. I ain't got a problem with that. Saves us asking that question. So I'm going to open it up now to the members of the executive for any questions and contributions, and then I'll come on to the opposition leaders. Councillor Vizard.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the report, Dave. Just to update, as members will be aware, already the PSDS funding for Riverside, which it says has been submitted, has been approved, which is extremely good news for Riverside, for Council, for the whole city. 3.6 million grant award for Riverside Centre from the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero from the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme, which is the SDS Phase 4. So my thanks, as I've sent to members via email to Joe Pearce and the whole Net Zero team for their work on that. We can move forward and hopefully successfully so over the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vizard. Anybody else? Councillor Wood.
Thank you. To echo what Councillor Vizard has said there, obviously that work will be carried out on leisure centres and in Riverside, and that makes a significant contribution to our sustainability as a service. And I just think that's a great thing to achieve. I know when this scheme last came before the council, we made the right decision to limit the risk we exposed the council to, and correctly stopped at that point on the basis we would go again. We went again, we have been successful. So this time we will see it through. So I just wanted to note that we made the right decision and it's paid.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Wright, did you want to come in?
Yes, just quickly, Chair, thank you. Just to note the direction of travel as well for the adapting the council workforce. So we're going to hear two reports, an update and a report in a minute about the digital side of that, but also very pleased that a new head of HR has been appointed and the new HR improvement plan is well underway for being delivered. So just want to highlight that out of that. And you have reminded me, I wasn't going to say it again, but it still says in here that I'm the portfolio holder for culture, and of course it is Councillor Bob Fold. So please could that be amended before the next time we get it? Thank you.
Who is a free band, by the way, as his T-shirt shows us. Okay, so there's nobody else. Opposition needs Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Leader. It's just an observation, Ron, and I've suggested, I think, an A and G, because I'm the person responsible for 8, 10 and the arrows up and down or staying sideways. It would be helpful, I think, for members on the actual documentation if it was indicated when the text was amended, because you don't know from meeting to meeting whether there have been changes or not changes. You've got a target date, which can be some years ahead. You've got an initial date when it was identified, but I think it'd be helpful to members in future if we can say, yes, that one stayed as is. No, I've made an amendment to the script just by them being dated as we go through in future.
Okay, we'll look at that possibility. Michael, makes sense. Anybody else? No, so that's the recommendation. It's a resolved matter. I'll move it from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Wright, all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 7 of the agenda, and here is the update on digital customer strategy, and it's a report for information to give members a progress report on the previously adopted strategy. So I'm hoping, Joe, you'll tell us what those changes are and where it's been updated to help us through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So when Council approved the strategy in 2023, it was minuted that we would bring back a report on progress, and slightly later than we had originally planned, but this is the comprehensive report on progress towards delivering the strategy. I have brought the 2 heads of service who have been instrumental in moving the strategy forward in the last 6 months with me, and if that's okay with you, Chair, we'd like to sort of talk you through a presentation on the highlights. There's lots of complex stuff within the strategy, and we thought if we were able to talk to it relatively high level and as plain English as we've been able to achieve at this point, we're hoping some of it might come alive for members in terms of the implications for customers and the changes that we're about to see in relation to council services. So if that's okay with you.
Can people see the screen behind me? I'm looking at that one there. Can you see it through my big head? Sorry, can you see the screen behind me? Okay, because I'm looking that way.
Is that better? Was it me not being closer? Okay, thank you. So, by way of introduction, those of you that haven't already met Andrew Hopkins, Andrew's Head of Service Digital and Data, and this is one of the new services that was established as a result of the customer digital strategy. You'll recall that the strategy informed the restructure of the organisation, and we created new departments that we previously had not had in the council. And so Andrew heads up the small but perfectly formed and very dynamic digital and data team. And Stephen Clayton, who many of you will know, has been here for a long time, but became Head of Service for Customers and Communities last September. And again, that's a whole new division that we didn't have before. And it's about making sure that we've got senior officers who are absolutely focused on ensuring the delivery of the strategy, and that we embed our customer-centric thinking into everything we do as an organisation. So I'm going to hand over to them, if that's okay. Thank you.
Cool. So the digital customer strategy was adopted in December 2023 and aims to enhance user experience and prioritise customer needs. It focuses on delivering customer-focused services, promoting digital equality and ensuring efficient processes. This report updates on the progress made and includes a detailed action plan for 2025-2026. Several digital transformation initiatives have been implemented, including a gateway for non-standard service requests, the ability for staff to use their own devices, which is a process we've introduced, improvements to the Contact Us form on the Exeter City Council website, and there was also previously the rollout of Microsoft 365, which all staff and members have had, reduction of mailbox sizes, and audits that were carried out on digital equality and data use. The strategy that was adopted outlined 10 goals for the digital customer service, detailing outcomes and priority actions for each.
Okay, and the new customer and digital teams have been formed within the People and Communities Directorate, heads of service, as you can see, were recruited in November 2024, with additional staff recruited in spring 2025. These teams will work with Strata to deliver the digital customer strategy and business plan.
The Strata Business Plan for 2024-25 was approved by the Strata Joint Executive Committee and full council here at Exeter. This plan aims to align the visions of the three councils involved and outlines key enablers to deliver digital aspirations, drive change and efficiency. Some of the highlights of this plan, which I appreciate it's quite small text here, but this includes the rollout of the new end user computing model, which are these computers we've got here at the moment, which will transform the user experience and phase out the use of global desktop. The contact center and telephony enabler, which will replace Skype with Teams telephony. The implementation of a state-of-the-art customer relationship management platform. Enterprise middleware architecture, which will enable integrations to take place in the data warehouse to provide a single view of the customer, which we'll talk you through in a second. SharePoint, which will replace our intranet and document management systems. The bookings enabler, which will provide the ability to book appointments and other council services. The notifications enabler, which will provide updates and reminders to customers, for example, on missed bins. And the enabler and website content and chatbots, which will enable more online self-service and resolution at first point of contact.
Okay, so the key part of the strategy focuses on providing joined up channels for customer interactions, with My Exeter, which is the personal account for customers, a key platform integrating multiple services based on usage data and quick wins. Garden waste is the first process that's been added, with more from waste management to follow, and that's accompanied by a communications plan to promote My Exeter to all stakeholders. And essentially what we're trying to do, what this diagram attempts to do, is show that we're making it easier for customers to interact with us. So moving from a model where officers had to use many different systems that didn't speak to each other, and customers weren't able to track their interactions and access personalised information in a single place. Moving towards a model where we can have one system for customer records and a single online account, allowing customers to track their inquiries easily and officers to have a 360 view of customer interactions. And as we said, the launch of My Exeter in 2025 is a key element of that. A new digital platform, starting with garden waste subscription services in January 2025, So far, we have over 2,000 users signed up since January, reporting a seamless, user-friendly experience, and plans are in place to promote sign-ups and expand these processes available through My Exeter during 2025. In terms of providing a seamless experience for our officers as well, when a customer calls, now the officer can go into a central customer record to access personalised information about multiple services. So in this case, you can see that the officer has access to information regarding bin collection schedules, missed bins, garden waste, and very soon in this same pane, the information will expand to include multiple services such as planning, council tax, parking permits, meaning that the officer doesn't need to navigate between numerous different systems to look at the customer's history with the council. Similarly, we're going to have all that customer contact in one place to be able to access the history of past interactions with various services. Here you can see it's planning and environmental health and additional information that is useful to the officer. So for example, in this case, you can see by the fist in the top left-hand corner that this particular customer has been added to our employee protection register, so that enables staff to keep themselves better protected, essentially. And what this allows us to do to keep all of this in the same place is to create better customer data. So it allows us to improve reporting. For example, this report shows demand types over time, the level of inquiries resolved on first contact, and those contacts that were avoidable. That allows us to drill down to understand where the pain points are for customers and where inefficient processes are affecting the customer experience. In terms of next steps around customer experience, looking to notify customers of service issues like missed bins before they have the need to contact us, improve engagement around service design and barriers to access, move towards a single online offer linking engagement and consultation, My Exeter account, newsletters, personalised information, adding more services to My Exeter and the customer relationship management system, which is what that example was earlier, testing a new chatbot, which is happening in customer services at the moment, and linking this all to the new telephony system so that customer information is brought up when the customer calls based on that contact number or that email address. And moving on to the telephony and contact centre, in 23-24, contact information was streamlined for better customer experience. By February 2025, all staff had transitioned from Skype to Teams telephony, and our new NICE CX1 contact centre solution will go live in spring, which offers better integration around communication channels, and further phases will introduce AI virtual assistants into there as well. So underpinning all of this, the customer and communities team, we're working on a customer charter involving councillors and customers set for 2025, aims to ensure consistent and high quality customer experiences, providing data for improvement within the corporate performance framework. And this initiative supports the culture of excellent customer service.
So as we have previously mentioned, we are looking to streamline processes to enhance efficiencies and customer experience. Key projects are currently taking place in our city development, parks and open spaces, and waste management services. The city development project aims to deliver on digital strategy outcomes, including the embedding of the uniform system into the service. We are also looking to ensure that customer data security is a top priority for us. So measures for us as a council include regular audits. We've recently just completed the cyber assessment framework, which is encouraged by the government, and we're rolling out cyber security training. Key aspects will include decision-making, governance, risk management, and assurance. And one of the things that we're talking about at the moment is the adoption of the data strategy, which links very much, is integral to our secured data approach.
Okay. Our strategy focuses on customer-centric design, emphasising the importance of designing services with engagement with the customer in mind, actively seeking customer feedback through website improvements. Discussions with our consultation engagement manager are really key to that, and our future consultation engagement strategy. With the development of the customer charter, also a key initiative to ensure customer expectations are met and exceeded. And underpinning this again is an approach that is about continuous improvement, dedicated to enhancing the digital customer service through continuous improvement, regular reviews, helping to identify enhancements, necessary changes implemented, And the progress report demonstrates our commitment to transparency and accountability around this work.
Thank you. So as a council, we've made significant capital investment which has been approved by members to support the digital customer strategy and the various enabler projects that I've laid out beforehand within the Strata business plan. Figures obviously listed there. And then in conclusion, the digital customer strategy has achieved significant milestones since its adoption in December 2023. Key achievements include the dedicated funding, bespoke teams, the launch of My Exeter, the development of digital skills, and the new telephony solutions. The council is committed to ongoing digital transformation, addressing inequality, promoting collaboration, and building skills. And then, do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you for that. But I'm going to open it up first to the executive for any contributions and questions. If you can, because we'll take them all at the end, Andrew, if you can take a digital note. So, Councillor Williams was first.
I've got a couple of questions, if that's allowed, Chair. It was great news for me hearing you say that there's been focus on waste operations and parks and green spaces, whoopee. Because I put a lot of effort into trying to get residents to engage in the online sort of reporting forms that we've already got, but it's a nightmare for them to try and navigate to get to them. And I think one thing I was looking for was the word app. Is there going to be an app for our residents so they can just look at their phone and press the button and then it's all there for them? So that was one of my questions. And the other question is, I noticed in your report on page 8, it talks about all this work that's gone into, for example, reducing mailbox sizes. And I wonder if that's the reason why a number of councillors are getting these sort of automated messages saying your mailbox is, and you need to reduce it. And I think that the reason I'm mentioning that is that in terms of how councillors manage their casework, when you have a number of residents now sending you several images, very helpfully to point out what the issue is, but they can each be several megabytes in size. And so I spent half a day yesterday going through emails, and these are recent emails, deleting images. And so it's actually how are councillors meant to manage their casework in today's sort of the way that residents like to work, and very helpfully inform us, but it is making it very tricky to manage with such a small mailbox. So those are my two questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vizard.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the reports. Very useful, very interesting, a lot of very commendable work going on. I'm interested in the area of digital equality, which is a section in this, and maybe you could draw out briefly some other things about how this will be put into practice. It mentions quite rightly that this is one of the priority themes of Exeter's Community Grants Programme. It may be something we need to work on more in terms of attracting organisations that are investing in this. I think we're perhaps not quite there yet. So it'd be interesting to see how this strategy and that will tie together in terms of enhancing that. I think a lot of people are accessing things on their mobile phone. It's the one bit of kit that most people have. Not everybody's going to have a laptop or an iPad, but mobile phones. So sort of a linked question to that is whether the mobile as the kind of key device has been given weight for that reason. Has this system been designed around people viewing information on the mobile? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Great stuff. You know that I get excited about all the digital stuff, which is a bit sad, but I can see how it is making a huge difference, and it's going to make a huge difference. I've got a couple of questions though about global desktop. So in your presentation, I heard you talk about phasing out global desktop. How will that work out for members that we don't have laptops, so we tend to use our own to go on global desktop because the functionality, as you know, is much better than it is on the iPads? I feel that's something that I should have asked you before, but I wasn't aware of the phasing out of the global desktop as being a big thing. Also staff training for members as well as, training for members as well as staff on the cyber security aspect. Please could we link up to make sure that that will go on the councillor sort of training session, because we do get some stuff sometimes that is very spurious. I just want to I'm sure you will understand Councillor Rhea's question about the boxes getting full up. I went on the server and managed to see that nothing had been deleted from mine since 2018 on the server, so you might delete it on your iPad, but you don't understand that might help. Oh, I've finished. Yeah.
We put it on eBay. Okay, thanks for that. And Councillor Wood.
Thank you. Again, thank you very much for this update. There's an awful lot of work going on, and it is in a direction that I think we need to recognise. We talk a lot about the digital divide, and very rightly focus on those without access to digital platforms. But I think that we also need to keep in mind the direction that society as a whole is making. Whilst once upon a time the default was reach for the phone, I'm going to write you a letter. Now I don't necessarily want to talk to you. I want to talk to my phone. My phone will give me the answer. And I think that if we don't meet the needs of that end of the spectrum, then we're failing. But we mustn't forget the other end. So I just think it's important to recognise that we're not just doing it because it's quicker and easier for us. It's actually led by customers, led by the market, but not forgetting anybody. Specifically within what you've presented, which was very informative, I noticed that there's kind of like a unique identifier that's linked to either an email or a telephone number. And on that example you gave there, mentioned garden waste collection. So that made me kind of think, well, my wife took out the subscription to the garden waste, but my telephone number will also be on the data. Is there a linkage around the home, as it were? And also interesting to see how far this goes outwards, if you like, in terms of subscription. So have I got an allotment? Is that in it as well? Have I got leisure service membership to the leisure service? Is that going to be in there? So those sorts of questions. How far will it kind of expand? What will it pick in? And will it track me as a person as well as me as somebody who lives here? Thank you.
Okay, so before I come to the opposition leaders, just a couple of things. In the appendices there's a table with a lot of times when things are going to happen. I'm assuming, obviously that's for yourselves, that you'll keep the portfolio order updated. And would there be a need to brief the council a briefing session? Because otherwise, this paper will just go because it's a resolved matter and just there you go. And I think perhaps councillors need to understand what's going on and how it can be used and what those services are, because people may actually talk to us or phone us about something, and so we could give an answer to that. And so that's important. And the other thing is about mailbox sizes, as you know. Well, you've sort of answered it, Councillor, with it's stored somewhere. So as you know, we get some obscure FOI requests sometimes. Who needs to know where I park when I go up to university and things like that. In the email, I have to disclose it, which is absolutely fine. And so if that's written off for me and somebody asks in these dates to that date, know that we can still access these things, which are for public information, obviously between residents and ourselves. That is personal and not disclosable. That's the other thing. And just a thing, and so as I said, over the weekend I was isolated up for a couple of days. And I watched on Netflix. Has anybody seen it? Zero, with Robert De Niro. This, have you seen it? This is about where all this stuff and it all goes up, everything's online and everything else, and all the problems. Now, obviously, a little bit of sensationalism. What sort of protections are there for us as individuals, the public, and everything else like that? Because we're becoming more, who's holding this stuff. I mean, if people want to know, I got a small brown bin, I ain't got a problem with that, by the way, they can know that. But there is some information, and I assume that all the customers are made fully aware of all of that when they're making that information. And perhaps you may want to explain what happens if people don't want to engage in it, but still wants to use our service. So, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Leader. And can I support Councillor Williams? And I thought, because I keep on getting these messages saying your email's 99% full. I've deleted 1,000 emails and it's still 99% full. And the problem is when you want to send something on, particularly on the planning, where people have sent you 5 or 6 megabytes of photographs, and the thing won't send because the pictures are too big. So I fully sympathise with Councillor Williams on that one. 3 points, if I can make, and I don't think they've been covered by anybody yet. You talked earlier on about Strata and other councils. Are any of our neighbouring councils using this system, and will they be compatible? I'm thinking particularly in changes coming ahead. When Exeter gets UA status, is this system expandable to deal with all the duties referred to in a unitary authority? Secondly, and it's partly hinted by the leader's question there, but what's the vulnerability of this system if it is a single system with a backup? We all think of Heathrow the other week, the substation going out. What's our backup on this system? And the third one is, and I expect we've all got them on board, I've got quite a number of people, residents in my ward, who are digitally excluded. They phone me, or I speak to them on the doorstep. I can well understand that they can phone into the system and your system then copes. My concern is how you communicate back to them, because it all appear to be records and passing information. If they haven't got that equipment or ability to do that, or got a smartphone, smart people but not smartphones, how do we ensure that they are included and not excluded? Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I've got 3 questions and a bonus point. That's okay. Clearly a lot of work. Thank you for this. Going to be quite a big change and a difficult project to deliver. I'm just interested in this enabler 10, which is talking about enhancing website content, and I just wondered if we are thinking about how we benchmark, or what quality standards do we use to make sure that we mention, as Joe said, we're talking in plain English, because obviously what we've heard this evening has had lots of technical jargon and all the rest of it, which is fair enough, but actually a lot of residents find navigating lots of information and lots of words really difficult. And will there be an opportunity for residents who need to, I know Google Translate is quite good, but to translate into other languages, because there are people in English in Exeter whose English isn't their first language, and sometimes we need to convey particular information. So that's my first question. My second question is about the chatbot, which chatbots often drive people quite mad. And so how are we going to test whether it's effective, or whether it's just a waste of people's time and our time? Because we've set aside £17,000 for that. So will that money be wasted if it doesn't work? So I'm I'm a bit skeptical about a chatbot. I like the different ways of getting in an app or whatever, but chatbot, I'm a bit sorry. I wanted to just pick up on Councillor Wood's point. I just wondered if there could be some reassurance about if you've got enough individuals in a household or an HMO and they're connected to one house. We don't want inadvertent sharing between individuals of personal data, which might seem quite innocuous, but actually could have serious consequences. And my bonus point, I just wondered if the music on the phone line could be changed. It's really, really awful. I'm really sorry. It's been there for years.
We'll put the red flag on for you. Anybody? Councillor Jobs.
Thank you. I won't repeat points already made, but I was going to talk about chatbots, because I find they never answer the question that you want them to answer. They always answer a different one. And secondly, You know, there are those who are digitally excluded and who need human contact. And Councillor Williams's point as well about the mailbox size. I too suffer from having to send photos between various mail addresses that I have in order that I can get them from A to B appropriately.
Okay, thank you. So there you are, Andrew. A few questions there. We're all accepting that the world is changing. We have to go along with it, but it's about some of the measures. The app is very, very important. Can I make one request about the app, by the way? Please do not ask the providers of Stagecoach to do it for you. That's the first thing. So I must probably get in trouble for that. Anyway, about the mailbox, that was it. About the equalities, which a number of things can be all wrapped up with about the security, individuals within HMO. That was a good point, and some of the other stuff to come. I think you can see that people are interested in it, but it's about having that. And finally, I really do think the more I listen to the questions, that actually a briefing with all the councillors in due course would be a good idea, to be quite honest. But there you go, Andrew.
Actually, Phil, I'll start if that's okay.
Yeah,
and then Andrew and Stephen, I'll ask them to come in with some of the detail. I'm going to try to pick up the themes from a lot of really great questions, so thank you for those. The first one I'll pick on is the mailbox sizes. I spent the best part of a year with everyone telling me off about how terrible life was going to be because of their mailbox sizes, and that was through all of our staff who dragged kicking and screaming to comply. The serious part of it is that storing data costs money. As we're moving into the cloud, which is our storage outside of physical servers, every single bit of data we store, we have to pay for. So there is a real serious financial issue that we've got to take into account. The more data we hold, the more photos we keep, the more we're paying every hour, every day for the storage of that data. So that's a really significant issue. What we save in not having physical infrastructure, we're obviously paying in the storage of every byte of data. So we only need to keep data that's of real value to us. So that's one important factor. As the item that we've got next will pick up, the other important factor is we should only hold data because it's necessary for us to hold it, and we should only hold it for the smallest amount of time necessary. And probably all of us in the council at every level hold on to data inappropriately. So we, as part of the data strategy, once it's approved, which hopefully it will be this afternoon, then we'll be starting a whole process linked into the enabler SharePoint of every single member of staff, and it will affect councillors too. There'll be a whole programme of work over the next 6 months, which will be helping people to know which data to keep and which data to delete. There'll be very clear rules, so you won't need to worry about, should I keep this for FOI? We will tell you how long different types of data need to be kept. Every item of data that we keep will have to be date stamped and registered, and will have to have a tag on it. And that means that the enablers that we described, the data warehouse and the rollout of SharePoint, will enable us to meet increasingly exacting standards on data quality and data governance. So struggling with a mailbox, and I sympathise, been there myself, we all know how painful it is. That's just the beginning of the discipline that we're all going to have to get into around how we manage and handle data. And there will be particular issues for members around some of the data types that you described that people are sending you as constituents. And where you're, as you described, Councillor, about how you're moving data from your own device to council devices, all those are issues that we'll need to explore with you and find resolutions that meet the data governance standards. So it's definitely a work in progress. I mean, we're learning. The data strategy, it's taken us a while to put it together, but it's really significant, and that sets the ground rules for how we then need to progress as an organisation. There are particular issues that you raised around whether you have iPads or laptops, and Andrew's doing some work at the moment with Strata and the other councils, looking at some of the issues that members are already facing with being unable to link into internal systems. So we know there's issues, and we're working on those now, and we will have to review what kind of devices are appropriate for members going forward as we move very rapidly into the new end user computing that we've been talking about. So that's the issue around the global desktop. I think every member of staff, and how many have we got now, Andrew?
rolled out, 185.
Is celebrating with absolute joy the fact that we don't have to use the global desktop anymore. It's quite a complicated process because there are thousands of apps that are used in different services, and each service area that gets the new computers, there has to be a whole process of user acceptance testing where every single app that's used, we have to make sure that it will work outside the global desktop. So it's highly complicated. We're starting with priority services first. We're coming members' way within the next 3 to 4 months, but just the plea is, could you please be patient with us? We're aiming to get all of the customer-facing staff off the global desktop as soon as possible, because the global desktop is what makes us vulnerable. And the global desktop, which is old technology, but it was the right technology when we deployed it, it lets us down frequently. And it means, for example, that the customer service workers are unable to deal with customers. Until we've moved onto the new platform, we can't move them onto the new end user computing. So just to give you an idea of the complexities that rolling out this change in technology, which is huge. It requires lots of detailed planning, lots of testing, and lots of patience from people who are far more patient than me, in both Andrew and Stephen's team, and with all the negotiation that has to go on with the other councils. So I hope I've covered off some of those things. The digital equality is a major issue that we talk about all the time. One of the key tenets is the more we can free staff up to focus on the people who need to have that one-to-one contact, the better. And that's at the heart of offering as much self-service and help yourself as possible, and to ensure that that's as good as it possibly can be, so that there's as much first resolution, and it's easy to do that, so people will want to do more and more themselves. That means that there's more time to deal with those people that may struggle and who may require some more help and assistance to be able to utilise council services. The good news for Exeter, I don't know if you will remember, and again, Phil, it's definitely worth updating everybody on this. We did do some work looking at digital exclusion as part of the strategy development. And the good news for Exeter is we are a far more digitally enabled city than our counterparts. So that was the surprising good news. We do know about the characteristics of some of those individuals and communities who are less digitally enabled, and we think about them all of the time in our planning and the work that we're doing on service transformation. So how do we make sure that those who are not going to self-serve or who might be struggling to use their smartphone, how do we make sure that the services are still appropriate for them? So it's constant in terms of the work that we're doing. One of the examples of how we're taking that forward is around the consultation that we're currently working on around moving to a cashless council. We know that, we're quite rightly concerned that some people, that's going to be an issue. So that consultation process will explore what those issues are for those individuals that we know have those characteristics. And part of that consultation will be coming up with solutions, working with those people so that we can ensure that there are solutions that will not require everybody to use a mobile phone, a smartphone or a computer, that we will still have face-to-face high street support for people to be able to pay bills, etc. So just wanted to give you that reassurance that it's very much in our thoughts in everything that we're doing at the moment. Stephen, do you want to add anything? Because you're he's a kind of watch keeper in terms of making sure that we're focusing on those things.
I think the key element is that at present, we're talking about shutting down channels, and we still have a team of skilled customer support officers who are dealing with people who do have vulnerabilities and do have accessibility issues. And as Joe said, we are, in the process of bringing forward our consultation engagement strategy, which within it will have specific reference to how do we engage with those groups who are potentially going to be excluded and potentially don't take part in things like engagement and consultation activity. So reaching out and how we do that and how we go to the places where those people are rather than expecting them to come to us is going to be a really key part of how we deliver that.
Thank you. I'm just going to pick up on the issues around Councillor Mitchell that you raised around how we're working with the other councils and what this might mean in terms of potential unitary authorities for the future, what vulnerabilities we might have. So the enablers that Andrew described is the underlying technology that will enable all of the 3 current partners in Strata, the 3 councils, to deliver on their digital ambitions. So we all have different digital transformation strategies, essentially wanting to do similar things. But it's the enablers, which is the technology that underpins it, that is the thing that will make that possible for us to do it, as it is already beginning to. And then those that gives us a really brilliant foundation, and the partner councils we're currently working with, to be able to join services up with other councils, should that be what's required in future. So it's the underpinning technology. The move to the cloud, which means that we then have evergreen systems. That means they're constantly updated, and we don't have to constantly put patches onto systems. All that old technology will go. So that's why we're ramping up our implementation pace, so that we can get ourselves as transformed as possible to make any transition to any type of new organisation going forward a real advantage for the services that are provided at this council. I wanted to then pick up the unique identifier issue, and I don't know the answer, so I'm going to refer that one to Stephen, who I know will be thinking about that, if he hasn't already got the answer.
We haven't got the answer yet, but what we do know is it is potentially an issue. So, you know, that's built into our conversations, and certainly there has been some rollout of systems that allow tenants to actually log into their systems as well, which are based around the household. But it's a unique issue potentially when we have people who've got mobile phones in the same household, same address. So definitely it's on our radar, and it's definitely something that we are building into our design essentially to make sure that that doesn't become an issue or a security risk for those tenants, those residents.
Thank you. So there are several references to how much we like or dislike chatbots. And all I'd say is, not being a fan myself until I've seen them work brilliantly, what I now understand from this work is that the chatbot is only as good as your core data. And that's why we have been slow to introduce chatbots, because we know our core data is not brilliant. So the conversation we had a bit earlier around data storage and who's got data and where is it, how updated is it, what's the quality of it, we have to improve that in order that we could then create a chatbot which learns from the quality of the data that you have available. Can you make a chatbot, do something valuable and worthwhile? So we've been watching from a distance at our partner councils who have been first to test and first to stop using, because rubbish in, rubbish out, as a phrase. So the tests that we're doing are very much around not exposing anyone in the public to it, but just to get an understanding of how accurate is the data as we're cleaning up the website, improving the quality of data on the website, which we're doing systematically. Can the chatbots learn to be more useful and reliable? And I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add on to that, as you live and breathe it.
Just to add that a lot of the frustration around chatbots that in our research has been around when they're used as complete blockers to accessing services in any other way. And so a really key element about designing that process is when somebody hits a wall, how early do they hit that wall, and then how easy is it then to get access to another channel where they're actually supported. But as Joe said, the key part is to give them the service that contains them within the chatbot. But if that's not possible, then making it easy enough to get to another channel, an officer to support them, because I think it's that kind of brick wall that really frustrates people when they're using chatbots.
Thank you. And then I was going to ask Andrew to pick up the issue about, are we going to have an app? Is it going to have everything eventually at some point? And anything else that you think we've missed that you wanted to address? Cool.
Thank you very much. So within the Strata business plan for 25-26, there is within that plan an app. So one of the key things, So yes, indeed. From the rapid impact team project that we're doing at the moment within waste management, I'm sure it's a similar thing, because I think one of the big things, and we've talked about this when I first met you, was in terms of how we notify people. And I think there's a lot of learning that we've brought to, and I think the ability to get a message out to our residents as quickly as possible is a key element of what we're trying to achieve as a council. So the encouraging news, I know I said when I first met you that I thought it was going to come. It's scheduled. We will hopefully be able to update members. And I think, one of the key things that comes out of this is obviously briefings, because I'm aware things like my Exeter, there's lots of new things that we're bringing through, the three of us, that I think we'd be keen to show members and also get your feedback, because you're customers as well. We also need you to be selling the message for us. One of the things we'll be working with Rob and the comms team when we've got more processes in May is how we then basically promote these new services moving forward. So yes, that is coming forward. Is there anything else?
I think there was the issue about translate, and I don't know whether Stephen, you've got the answer to that one about translation tools.
Yeah. So in terms of the website element, so within my team I have a digital service officer. So he acts as sort of the gatekeeper. So there's a common standard. So Dan will work with all services. So he is providing that sort of commonality in terms of making sure that content that's produced is as plain English, and again with things like the chatbot and things we've talked about at the moment, we're trying to work through where there's bits missing. So the chatbot test we're doing at the moment is based on the main website. So where we see missings, that's one of the things that we will also bring through. And again, with other projects we've got at the moment, there are, I think, processes and elements of pages that are missing from what we're currently providing. We're also looking at how we get feedback from customers who use our channels. So one of the things we haven't got at the moment, which we're looking to introduce, and is how we best manage that, is to have that ability for members of the public to feedback at all times. And then that will, so it's always evolving all the time. And then, translation.
Well, anyway, it comes into your area slightly, Andrew, but actually the website does have translation services on it, doesn't it?
So what we can do is we can provide you a sort of, we'll provide an answer for Mark to come out in the minutes in terms of what service we've currently got available, and give you a full update on that.
I think the final question was around benchmarking. So we already are independently assessed in terms of some standards for local government around our website, and believe it or not, we all score very highly. So that is really, it surprises me, because I sometimes can't navigate my way around it. And Councillor Ryan, I've talked about this sometimes. Some of that is we've made it quite complex. So part of the work we're doing is simplifying it. So we're certainly externally assessed independently every year, and so we benchmark high in terms of those standards. Increasingly, we will want to be benchmarking, and the more we work with other authorities, the more we'll be joining benchmarking clubs. So it was a really good question to raise, and something that we are aspiring to be able to demonstrate that we're going to be best in class. And that's kind of the aspiration that we have in the team. We have been doing a lot of background work, as you can probably see. So I call it the housekeeping. So I'm building those foundations. So that's really been the focus of the last 18 months, 2 years work. And so you don't see a return for that investment in our time and the funding that the council have allocated to this, but we're now at the stage where we're able to start making this come alive and implement the changes. So it feels very exciting, very motivating, and I want everyone to go faster and quicker, and people are getting grey with all the pressure I'm putting them on. I've got a target to get the most my Exeters and beat Teambridge and East Devon and all this ambition, but that has to be tempered with, we don't want to make anything worse. So we've got to take it systematically, a stage at a time, service at a time, and manage the desire to do more. But so that's why we're focusing on the high volume areas where we know we get a lot of inquiries. So that's hence we're focusing in on Council Williams area, because we know it's where the highest level of demand is. A lot of other councils have gone for very small things and done them perfectly. And we're taking the opposite approach. We want to go for large areas to get the biggest impact. And we're working now with some resistance from our partner councils, I have to say, who have a different approach. But we want to put all of the revs and bends and council tax information into my account, because we know that's, again, a massively high volume of calls where people can't access the information. We have it, and we have to tell them the information that's theirs, that they gave us, and they have to phone us up or write to us to tell them. We want them to be able to go straight online, and it's their information. So we're just at the final stages of negotiating that revs and bends comes into the data warehouse next and comes into my Exeter. We think that will be a game changer, along with the information that we hold within our council housing system, where we have got tenant accounts. So the vision we have is that by the end of this year, if you're a council tenant who already has an account with us, you should be able to log on to that portal or my Exeter, and you'll see all of the other accounts that you have with us. You'll be able to see whether you're up to date on your council tax payments, etc. It'll all be in one place. At the moment, you have to go find many different places, and often you can't, so you phone up Stephen's team. So that's the vision. So as Andrew was saying, just to finish off, Chair, is that we have been quite quiet in terms of not promoting this work, because we wanted to make sure that we were getting the basics right and that we could offer a really good quality start. And Rob and the comms team have been giving us advice on when to open up the conversation with the public. And part of that is that during April, we plan to come and talk to all members around what we think is going to happen in the next few months, and to seek their help in communicating the messages and also feedback. We think that's going to need to be a 360 process throughout the year, because this is a really dynamic process. So for us, this evening is kind of like our first kind of outing, really, to let you know what's going on, and that there's a lot more to come, and we absolutely need your help. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope I answered all the questions.
Well, thank you, Joe. I mean, I'm glad we had the time, that we haven't got another 15 items to follow, that we've been managed to do this and spend a bit of time on it. And just to say, give another reference to it, I now actually understand a bit of that programme I was watching for last weekend. So there's the recommendation before it. This one's item 7 is a resolved matter. So I'm going to move it from the chair. If I can have a seconder, please. It's Councillor Wright. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Okay, we're now going to move on to item 8, which is indeed, sounds like deja vu, but slightly different, I understand, from what I can see. The strategic director again, data strategy, and there's one recommendation here that's going to council, which we approve the data strategy as set out in Appendix A.
Thank you. I think I've probably said all that needs to be said about it, in the sense that the data strategy is a really important underpinning document that sets out the ground rules for how we're going to look after the data that people very generously share with us, and make sure that it is safe and secure and used appropriately. I hope that the strategy itself is as readable and understandable as possible. We did work hard to make it as untechnical as possible, if that's a word. I don't really have anything else to say, really, just to respond to any questions if anyone has any.
I'll open it up to the executive, Councillor Williams and then Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much for the information in the previous report on this sort of this as well. I'm really interested in data collection in terms of maybe streamlining our services, as well as sort of, for example, identifying hotspots for things like whether it's fly tipping, whether it's littering, whether you've got full littering. And it's actually, sometimes when you submit these online reports, it's the collection of that intelligence, so that we can then it enables us to manage our assets and perhaps move them about a bit. But it's also, you can say, this is my email and I'd like an update on whether this has been resolved. So it's actually, how does that sort of fit in with this data strategy? And it's also things like mapping, where we've been planting trees. So we've got all this information, and it's really readily accessible, and it helps the teams develop their strategies and address any issues.
Thank you. Who else was it? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I would just like to point out, since the adoption of Office 365, if this is too much to read, then you can, of course, get Copilot to create a summary, which is quite useful for us sometimes when we do have big agendas. So just that. And also, I've got a question about councillors being our own data controllers. Is that the right one? Because we previously, I know at least, we didn't sit inside the sort of protection of the corporation. Is that still the case, that we sit outside that and we are responsible for our own data control and therefore fines, etc.?
Councillor Falk.
Thank you. Just an observation before a brief question. It seems like we're all on a journey, and I'm a comparative Luddite, but I also have a 96-year-old mum who's registered blind and just about use a mobile phone, and that's it. I've got 5 children who all know 10 times more than me, and at the last count, 12 grandchildren who can all operate. So it was warming to hear the extent to which you're trying to meet the needs of all those customers and potential customers, and I'd like to thank you for that. And the question is, are the 3 of you available for weddings and bar mitzvahs? Excellent presentation, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Opposition members, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions and a challenge. You'll like the first question, Bob. So the first question is about access to the public to important information, or maybe to partners. So I'd like to know when the various databases are going to be updated. And there's 2 in particular that I am concerned about. One is about the true protection orders, which lots of the public are very interested in, particularly when it comes to planning applications. And that has been being updated for about 3 years and is still not online. If I want to see it and respond to resident, I have to ask for an officer to send me a screenshot. The second one is the heritage assets. So I'm not talking about the city wall and the bridges and all the rest of it that Dave worries about. I'm talking about the stuff that's underground, and that is seriously out of date, and it's really important because the utilities come up and dig up South Street and all the rest of it, and then they uncover stuff that they didn't know that they was there, and we didn't know was there, and it's then by that time it's too late to protect it. So that's a really urgent piece of work, and it's important that some of these things are then made public so that the public can interrogate them and use them to support the work that goes on within the council. So my second question is around in the report somewhere it says about the significant investments and the money that we heard about in the previous report. Do we feel that the budget is sufficient and that we're going to deliver this on time and within budget? And my challenge is, we've had 2 reports here, which all about data, which is great. And on both reports it says there's no environmental impacts. That isn't correct, because we know that data storage in the cloud consumes huge amounts of energy. So I do think we ought to understand what the environmental and particularly the carbon impacts are of our data storage. And, in 2030, we're just going to delete it in order to become net zero.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
They could just
Sorry.
just 2 brief points. The one is in the paragraph about principles we will work to. Have you got? I'm just wondering what the I means in the first sentence. It says our staff will be highly data literate. I or 1, and we will invest. Is that some sort of standard of data literacy, or is it just a typo that was all on that one? The second point was, in regard to this document, which will be a public document and set a standard, has it worked to any imposed template by central government, or likely to be imposed by any central government? Because I assume a lot of the graphics, etc., have come from somewhere else. We haven't generated them ourselves. So is there a measure against this strategy against any public document? Can say yes, we've included everything we need to include.
Okay, thank you. If there's Nobody else. There's a few questions there, detailed questions. If you can help us with those, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. I think some of the points and questions that both Councillor Williams and Councillor Moore asked around how do we get all of this rich data, some of it we have, some of it we don't, how do we make that available publicly? I think those are really good questions, and I think at this stage it's going to be an evolution and not a revolution. So some of it will be down to the resources that we have available. Really, really good questions to ask. We're focusing in on a project at the moment with the development department. So they're the owners of a lot of the information that you're describing. And that's one of the issues that we are looking at with them in terms of improving the quality of the information that's on our website and making better information available. So some of the information they already hold. They have just been successful in applying for a specific grant of around £50,000 from the centre around specifically digitising planning services. For that very reason, we've literally the money's just been announced. So Andrew is working with Roger as the head of service there to say, so what are we going to do with that money? So this is really timely point that you're both making that we can take into account in that conversation. But it's definitely work that we need to do. It's just the resources and the skills, because one of the things we're finding is that it's actually really difficult to recruit people with the kind of digital skills that we're after, because everybody is recruiting people with the digital skills. And when we're up against a private sector that pays a lot higher wages than we do, we are really struggling. So we're finding solutions, and we're partnering up with other councils, and we're working with Strata on a project basis. So we're finding solutions, but it is going to be an ongoing issue for us in terms of resources. But we'll keep that in mind and think about how we can, when we can, accelerate any of that work, because I get the point. It's really useful. In terms of money, the question I think Councillor Moore was, it's a significant investment. Are we going to deliver on time and on budget? I think the investment is sufficient. Remember, we have a revenue element that goes into Strata as well, which is around £2 million a year. That keeps the lights on and enables us, once we've done the transformation, for that to become business as usual. We think that the budget is sufficient. We've done a lot of work to make sure it is. The partnership arrangement gives us economies of scale, so that really does help. We, I believe, have got the capability in-house to deliver on time. We have a concern that our other councils are taking a lot longer to reach some of the decisions that we're reaching, because we took a very different approach at the beginning. So we went for, let's get the housekeeping sorted out, let's get infrastructure before we start doing small tests of change. So we're ready to do an initial small test of change and then a rollout, where the other councils are struggling to make those decisions to roll out. So we're just calling a summit now with Strata management team to discuss that we might need to have a slight change in approach, which I think Strata would also welcome, because if there's a council that's going to go at pace and scale, then that helps them to be delivering. So we're just negotiating that through. So being absolutely honest with you, I think we've got the capability to deliver, but we are in a partnership and we want to continue to work in partnership because of the benefits. But that is also a challenge in terms of, can we deliver on time? The carbon impacts is definitely an issue that we discuss at the Strata board, and Strata are doing a piece of work on behalf of the 3 councils to see if they can come up with a meaningful assessment of the carbon impacts of the transformation. So we've had a look at it a couple of times before, and we found that it was actually really difficult to come up with anything meaningful that we could use. So there's been a specific project that is about trying to do that. So hopefully there should be something forthcoming in the next few months. I think the data controller question, I don't know the answer to. Do you? No, we'll come back on that one.
I actually do know the answer, and it's yes, we are.
I thought so, but I wanted to check.
We really need a briefing on that.
Yeah.
A lot of us may not know
Yeah.
that.
And did I cover everything?
I found Councillor Mitchell's. There's a typo on my part, so we'll amend that. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I apologise.
So you didn't put that in the chat box. Right, okay. So I've got the recommendation here that we approve this. This goes to the full council. I'm going to move it from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Wright. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the agenda today. Good discussion there on that future. I'd like to, this is the last meeting of this municipal year. None of us in this room are, well, for the executive it is, fighting any elections. Some of us will re-emerge in whatever forms we re-emerge after May the 1st. I'd like to thank Anne, who's been a member of this committee as an opposition leader. You will be elevated to the Lord Mayor. Please go easy on some of us, please. I'm begging that to you now. But best of luck with all of that, by the way, and I know we'll see you. And thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.